and we'll pick up 4. So in the end, we get the same amount for each student. What the difference is how much the state is going to kick in. And it's very similar to, again, Woburn High School versus, Chelsea High School. The state's going to pick up the difference.
And that seems to be set by the state, not the school, correct?
1,000%. So this goes back to ed reform. And it's a formula that nobody understands completely. And it's been a frustration in every city and town, I think, in decades. And right now, Senator Lewis has a task force that's looking to reform that formula or the procedure.
Thank you. My last thing, it's more of a request. I'd love for you to send over, because I'd like to see the breakdown of students per city and town. If you can get that over to our clerk.
Sure. And is it in the regular budget? Before I leave, I can share it and you can make copies.
Is it in the budget?
No, I brought the full budget, who do you send it to? The FinCom or the?
Yep. So I send it to all the city and town officials when it's approved.
Okay, yeah. Okay, but we can get you a head start on that.
That'd be great.
I believe the city council chair, I think I sent it as well.
Okay, but we have some, so we'll share that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councilor Campbell?
Yes, hi, good evening.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Thank you for all that you do. As Councilor Dillon said, we need these positions that, that you are teaching these young adults. It's very important. Over the years, you have been very frugal, very diligent in making sure that you did not increase the percentage by much. And so when I see that this has happened, I believe you, because you've made sure in all the years prior to only increase as much as you possibly could, and to take where you could, little bits. And so this increase, I do believe, must be coming from the state and the different processes that they've changed in their decision. So, which is very sad, because it seems like they did not take that into consideration, how this was going to affect the cities. And now we're even seeing it with our school department, who will be after you. And they've talked about this. I want to thank you for bringing this forward and really explaining it extremely well to us so that we could understand it. And to your point, you wonder why people weren't more of upset about the changes. They probably did not understand the ramifications, what that actually meant to the cities, and what kind of increase that meant. I have a feeling that's probably what it is. So I am hoping, now that people's budgets are coming forward, that maybe this can get some press, because wherever this money, whatever programs the governor is setting forth, obviously that's her right to do so, but if it's going to be affecting so many cities with their budgets to the point where you said some are really going to have to do some drastic cutting, then she needs to rethink these programs and juggle that around, because it's really putting the cities and the schools especially at a deficit. So I want to thank you for letting us know that and understanding that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor DeMambro?
Good evening. I appreciate the presentation. I thank you. I'd like to talk about the construction costs for the new school. Are you guys on budget for that as of now? Where is that going, and where do you guys see it? Because we all know that building materials go up every quarter, it almost seems like, and it's been fluctuating in the last few years due to COVID and supply chains and all that stuff. So I guess my main question is, where are you guys at with the project? I know there's the foundation, the steel's coming in, but cost-wise, as well as, do you forecast any types of variations or fluctuations regarding your budget by which you're going to be in a deficit? Right.
No, we are 100% on budget. We're on schedule. I plan on being under budget, even if that may be 1 cent. The goal is for Northeast to be under budget. Ms. O'Brien talked about the $23 million. We were here over a year ago presenting the new school project, and a gentleman, Charles Lyons, may he rest in peace, passed away. He sat in my office with me, and we worked on legislation to bring more money in, as Ms. O'Brien had mentioned, and it had passed, and the $23 million that came back to us was supposed to secure anything in addition to what we felt the school was going to cost. We, and I still don't know how, were able to say, we're on budget. We're going to give that $23 million, a big portion of it went to Woburn, back to minimize your debt. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't completely sure that we were on budget. In addition to that, we secured, not to repeat Ms. O'Brien, $7 million in equipment grants after our MSBA allotment. And we're using that money then to buy equipment so that the money from the equipment line item would then go to any increases in materials and steel and such. So again, moving things around a little bit, and again, I always recommend this, really working with the state legislators. We're up to State House constantly. I harass Senator Lewis and, you know, some of our reps on the North Shore constantly, because we can get legislation approved that will bring money to your district, our district. We need to be active, and we really were successful, fortunately, this year in that endeavor. And I hope to come back here next year and say, hey, we secured a couple $1 million more, and we're in better shape. And that's always the goal.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your diligence on that and staying true to it. And you got a bird dog it, I get it, almost 24/7, 365 days a year, and I know it can fluctuate. So I appreciate that. And I just want to put a shout out to all of your students that built a fabulous speaking podium that was revealed at our O'Brien Rink ceremony. It is absolutely beautiful. So kudos to those guys. You guys do a phenomenal job over there, and I
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
everything you guys do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Mercer Bruin?
Thank you. I have no doubt that you'll come in under budget. For as many years as I sat in the seat, you folks, I don't know how you do it. You waste nothing. You're accountable for every penny. I encourage the new city councilors to go up to the school and tour and take a look at what. When you go, you'll see what I mean by there is no waste. I'm very excited that the building is going to be built so quickly. It seems like it's been forever, but thank you. You provide an invaluable service to the students here from Woburn and the other surrounding towns. It's unfortunate the way the state handles things sometimes for all of us here.
Right.
But I thank you for what you do there and continue to do. And I know many of your students for the last 4 or 5, maybe even longer than that, although the trades don't require them to go off to college, are prepared to go off to college. And some of them do, because they want to start their own businesses. Not that you need to go to college to start your own business. You certainly don't. But the dynamic has changed at your schools so much, and keep doing what you're doing. We're very grateful. Thank you.
Any other comments from the council or questions? No? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay, you want to get that?
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Mayor Concanon.
Good evening,
I could
Mr.
just-
Chairman.
1 second, Mr. Mayor. If I can remind the public, just if your phones are on ringing, please silence them, please. Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
So we're here tonight, third night of budget review with the Finance Committee. Previous 2 nights, we dealt with the city side, department heads, So basically, half of the budget has been reviewed tonight. We've seen Northeast Voc. Next up is the Woburn Public Schools and their budget. I appreciate the attention that's been paid so far, appreciate the questions, appreciate the support. What I'd like to do at the outset, I think everybody has a copy of a revised intro page as well as a revised page 30 for the school department budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't know if that could be formally introduced.
Do we have a motion?
Make a motion that the updated top sheet and page 30 be received and made part of the permit.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for that. So that is the, basically the new amended working proposed budget from my office to the city council for your review and your action. The only change is page 30 with the school department, and of course that impacts the overall cover page in the bottom line. Briefly, those changes come about in three buckets, and we've talked about this before, and I wrote about it at length in my 5-page budget letter. The three buckets are basically potential offset savings that were built into the budget. If you look at the school department budget that was presented, well, that was voted on by the school committee, and you compare it with what I sent to you, it is exactly the same thing. The only difference is these buckets, these proposed offsets. And the three buckets were potential savings that might be realized as a result of redistricting, potential savings that might be realized as a result of an early retirement incentive driven by redistricting. And the third bucket was the potential savings realized by the continuation of the new arrival migrant student reimbursement from the state. What was presented to you on May 23rd included those three buckets and specific line items for those buckets. Well, as you heard from our friends at Northeast Voc, and we've heard a lot as of late, the budget cycle this year is unlike any other, and everything is changing seemingly by the minute, but certainly by the day and the week. And what has changed since May 23rd, when I submitted that original budget and its original offsets, is that we've learned a few things. Things have gotten clearer. Some decisions have been made that have essentially cleared up how valid those placeholders can be. I'm talking specifically about the school committee vote to no longer proceed with redistricting this year. Very difficult decision for them. I watched all of it. I know how hard they were working to try to make that happen. I know that they were attempting to solve what's been described as a crisis in the equitable educational experience that Woburn students are experiencing right now. I know they were working hard to solve that. And at one point, it appeared that their efforts to do that would also yield savings. What I included in my budget to you was a potential savings of $375,000, which was somewhat in line with the options that they had before them as they were pondering redistricting. But as we've found out, they've made a decision that I don't disagree with, that circumstances have changed that makes redistricting much more difficult to try to get done this year. So they voted not to proceed with redistricting. They voted last night. I'll certainly let them speak for themselves in a minute. So it was only prudent that we remove that potential $375,000 savings from redistricting, since it's not going to happen this year. The next step was the potential savings due to an early retirement proposal. And there's a bit of history on that. I won't bore you with tremendous detail, other than to tell you that the notion of an early retirement incentive came about directly as a result of the redistricting discussion. At some point in the discussion, it did appear that redistricting could lead to significant layoffs of teachers. By moving the students around and utilizing space more efficiently and maximizing capacity, there was a potential that we would not need as many teachers as we have. There was a concern that we may end up losing a significant number of young, energetic, new, vibrant, critical teachers in our system, and nobody was pleased with that prospect. So the idea was, what if we, school department, city council, mayor's office, decided to offer an early retirement incentive paid for potentially by the city that would yield a significant number of senior teachers choosing to leave, thus saving the positions of the newer teachers that might otherwise be laid off due to redistricting. So redistricting and early retirement went hand in hand. And the caveat to the early retirement proposal or concept was that A, the city council would have to decide whether they thought that was an efficient use of city funds, and that was an essential part of the deal, critically important. And secondly, the numbers would have to make sense, or why would the city council ever do that? So as time went on and the process played out, and again, I'm speeding up, skipping over some things, but we get to the point where we're no longer going to do redistricting this year. So we're no longer looking at those layoffs. So the retirement proposal did not seem to have much merit at all. I don't think this council would entertain spending the amount of money it would take to fund the early retirement incentive for the minimal, if any, savings it would yield. That said, even though the school committee voted to include that $750,000 offset in their budget, what you see before you tonight is me putting that back in, because in good conscience, we could not leave it out. These are real numbers. This is the real situation. This council needs to have all of the information as it decides what it wants to do next. So you've got the $375,000 redistricting offset erased, put back in. You've got the potential $750,000 early retirement offset savings erased and put back in. The third bucket that was always on the table here was the potential anticipated projected savings that could come, or we believe may come, from the continuation of the migrant program and students continuing to come to Woburn. Many, many discussions with the school department about what that number might be, and none of us know. That's why these are projections. But we use a similar model elsewhere in our budget when we project numbers that we think we might get. We do it with Chapter 70 fundings. We just heard that discussion from Northeast folk. We do it with grants. We did it with the $1.8 million special ed overage account from last year. And we do it, for example, with the fire department, with the BLS receipts. Same model. That's what we used when we came up with originally a figure for new arrivals / migrant student reimbursement. The original figure in your budget was $950,000 potential savings, which is less than this year. But in further conversations with the school department, the school committee chair, they felt much, much more comfortable using a lesser number, not 950. 600,000 is roughly 25 more students coming to the Woburn system, a third of what we got last year, a number that is much more palatable as a projection. So the impact of the changes on your page 30 are those three buckets: 375, 750, and then the 950 reducing to $600,000. That's what you have in front of you tonight. And I will tell you that is exactly what the school committee voted for their budget for FY '25. The difference this year is that that number was built over the course of several months in discussions with the school department, school committee chairman, city council president, city auditor, myself. I had the opportunity to see in much more detail than I've ever seen before in my 10 years on the council what is in the school department budget. So what I've presented to you is what I believe is the adequate number for the school department to operate next year. Now, you may ask yourself, and I know you will, you'll probably even ask me, why such a big increase in one single year? The largest single increase I've ever seen, and probably any of you have ever seen. And if you look at the back page of the letter I sent down on May 23rd, there's a breakdown of the significant budget drivers. And I won't bore you by reading it, but I would just tell you this in summary. You take last year's budget that was approved and that we used to run the school system, then you add in certain necessary, contractual, mandatory costs, and you essentially get to the number that's in front of you tonight. For example, there was a contract negotiated last year. Negotiated, settled, signed, and it needs to be funded. And that is between $3 and $4 million when you add up the contractual salaries, as well as the impacts as a result of that contract to horizontal steps and lanes, et cetera. You also have the $1.7 million that we used last year to fund the school department out of ESSER funds. That dried up. We all knew last year, when I sat right there, that that was drying up. So that's not a surprise either. We also have some additional costs that were incurred after July 1 that were approved by the mayor that the school department has utilized, 1.16. We have special ed out-of-district tuition costs increasing by about $800,000. Special ed transportation increasing by $1 million. Electricity costs, $635,000. Curriculum, $350,000. Homeless and general ed transportation costs increased $400,000. Cost for substitute teachers increasing $250,000. Cost to facilities increasing $150,000. Those are all must-haves. So last year's budget, added to by these must-haves, gives you the number that's in front of you tonight. It is fully funded. It's a lot of money, I know that. And there will be an impact to the taxpayers as a result. One thing I did learn through the process this year, well, I learned a lot, but I got eyes into how the school department budget is compiled, as well as how it's implemented and executed. And I found that invaluable. And that's something that I'm looking to continue. We've had a lot of conversations with the school department, and they've shared a lot, and I found it helpful. I like to think that me finding it helpful and you finding it helpful is helpful to them. It's going to allow them to do their job better now that we understand better what their job is and how much money they need to do it. So I'm asking them, and I'm asking this council, to bless a continuation of that cooperative effort we've had over the last 6 months, where we meet regularly with the school department and we look at their budget, we look at how they're spending it, and we get a better understanding of that, so that when they come to us with needs, we understand them. So I've asked the school department and the school committee chair to continue that relationship, that ongoing, at least monthly relationship, I mentioned to this council that we already have a mechanism for something like that. We do it with police, fire, and DPW through our WUSTAT process. I would love for the school department to sit with us for that. So I don't want to go on much longer. I just wanted to give an introduction and set the table for where we are, at least in my perspective. Tonight's the night for the school department and the school committee to be able to make their case, give their summary, and of course for this council to ask them questions about their budget. If you have any questions of me about their budget, I'm more than happy to answer them now, or I'll be right here for the duration of the meeting. I can always jump up and jump in if necessary. So I thank you for your time, and if there's any questions of me, I'm available now.
President Dillon.
Yes, Mayor Concanon, just for the public, can you tell them what your proposed budget is, so the public is aware of it?
Sure.
Please.
So the total budget for the Woburn School Department would be $90,366,621.40, which is an increase of 14.53% over last year's budget.
And my second point, can you just describe for the public what WUSTAF contains in a brief description, which someone already did?
Sure. So WUSTAT is us stealing the notion of CompStat, which is pretty widely known to government and industry. It's a frequent review of the ongoing status of data, primarily financial, but also metrics that help government bodies and other institutions gauge performance. So essentially here in Woburn, we meet once a month with the police department, the fire department, and the DPW. We look at the budget that they were allocated at the beginning of the year, and we look at where they should be at that point in the year, whether it's 1/12, 1/4, 1/2, wherever we are in the month, we look and see where they should be tracking with their percentages, line item by line item. We get to see, basically we get to see whether the projections we made are accurate, whether they should be further tweaked for the next year, and we also get to see in real time whether there are problems looming, so we can deal with them immediately and not have to wait until they blow up into something more significant. I know that Councilor Ferrullo is very familiar with this. He participated in WUSTAT for many years. I've talked with him, and I know that he saw value in that. I think that explains it. I'm not sure if you need more, Council.
No, I think that explains it, and just follow up on that. That has showed positive results, not only in cooperation, but in the end budget, just where everyone knows where they're heading, correct?
It does, and I think you'd find, and I think Chief Ferrullo would agree, that even though when these departments were first asked to participate in WUSTAT, it may have seemed like it was going to be painful, and it could lead to their budgets being cut. In almost every instance, it led to an opportunity for that department head to make a better, clearer, more valid argument for why they needed what they had and then some. In particular, I know with the fire department, that was an opportunity for Chief Kenton to make his argument that he was spending too much in overtime and it was time to add some bodies to the department. And that's what was done as a result. So there are very positive, tangible results from the WUSTAT process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Counselor at Large Ferrullo.
Mayor, just as a follow-up to that, could you explain who facilitates WUSTAT, just so it's not an internally?
I'm sorry, Chief?
Could you explain who facilitates WUSTAT? I think it would be beneficial.
yeah, so
that
we
it's
have
not an internal process, it's an
No.
external process.
We have a contract with UMass Boston, the McCormick School. They do this around the state. Councilor Demers is probably familiar with them. They come into communities, they use our data. We analyze what we think is important to analyze. They don't tell us what we need to do. It's financial, but it's also performance-based. And I've participated in several of them now, and I find it extremely helpful. And again, I think it's something that should be embraced, and I'm really hoping that our school department friends will agree.
Councilor Mercer-Brown.
Actually, Mayor, my question to you is going to be, has the school department agreed to this? And it sounds like there has been no agreement.
I think in principle,
Right.
the idea of meeting frequently is amenable to them.
14.53%. I would hope we get more than just in principle for the WUSTAT, but we'll save that for a little bit.
Yep.
And in the WUSTAT, could you set it up so that you can see if money gets transferred from one place to another place and so on and so forth?
Yes.
Is that level of detail
Yes.
can be provided? Okay. This is a big number. You're absolutely right. And a lot of it is contractual, but there are some things that are not contractual. There's no doubt. We've talked about this at length. It has been I have made no, to you or to anyone else, how concerned I am about this number. I've been on this council a very long time. I've always supported the schools. For the first 10 years I sat in this chair, my children didn't attend Woburn schools, but that would no way, this is a community. We support our schools. I've told you what my concern is with this number, is what is going to happen to our most vulnerable population. And I know we're going to talk about some of those things later on.
And I do share that concern.
I know you do, Mayor. We've talked about it. I know you do, and I appreciate that.
Yep.
So as we get more into it, maybe there's an opportunity to find some savings that can alleviate the pain this is going to bring, and it will bring pain. So I thank you. I know you've been working with the school department for quite some time. Your tone is much different than when we last talked. It sounds like things are patched up or whatever, but at the end of the day...
there wasn't anything that needed to be patched up. We have a whole bunch of people who are working hard
Okay,
to try to achieve the same
right.
goals, to
But-
provide the best education we can
okay.
at a dollar amount that the
Oh,
residents
no, I
can
understand. I understand. But again, it's in front of us tonight, and everyone's going to have to decide on Monday, after we go back to our constituents and let them know what this is going to cost them. And then we make a decision from there. But I can't wait to get into the details of it. And I'm looking forward to that tonight. So,
And you raise a great point, and I've said it before, and I'll reiterate it tonight. There is a process here in Woburn by which a budget gets approved. We are all players in the process. School department has done its part. The school committee has done its part. I've done my part, and now it's the council's part,
Right.
and that is to be respected.
right, and I thank you for that. And thank you again for everyone in the room who's done, it sounds like months of work.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the mayor? No. Seeing none? I'll
Thank you
invite
very
up,
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Superintendent
Thank you, Mayor.
Crowley? Thank you, sir. Wow. Chair Lipsett?
Members of the council, good evening. Thank you so much for having us all here tonight. On behalf of my fellow school committee members who are in the audience tonight and those who aren't, we are here to present to you the Woburn Schools 2024, FY 2025 budget. As we've already said and as we've already heard, this is a large budget. We are aware of that. It is a historic budget. That is because we are in a historic moment for the Woburn Public Schools. The pressures that we are facing are historic pressures. We have seen a confluence of pressures on our school budget, the likes of which we have not encountered. We have settled good contractual increases that must be met. On top of those, we have a rapidly growing student population. The Woburn Public Schools have enrolled an 8% increase in our total students since the start of this school year. That cannot be understated in terms of the need that we are facing and the need that our kids are facing. We have to meet those needs. The students who we are adding are largely high-need students. Those are students who come to us with either physical or learning disabilities. Those are students who are coming to us who do not speak English or whose homes do not speak English, who are learning English. These are students who are coming from low-income households. These are students who we know require more resources to provide an equitable learning environment, and we must meet that need. We have heard about ways in which state funding has put pressures on school funding, and that puts pressure on city funding. For us, Chapter 70 goes to the general fund, right? That is a pressure that the city must bear. But it certainly impacts the school's bottom line. So when we began the process of this budget, this was a budget that the school committee and the school department wanted to make a transparent budget, as transparent as we have ever done, more transparent than we have ever done. In previous budget cycles and under previous administrations, the budget pressures on us required that we cut where we might be able to spend. And yes, we had to, at times, figure out how to meet that during the course of the year. What we are presenting to you tonight is the most transparent budget we have ever presented. And there's a reason for that. It's because we want to be fully and completely clear about what the needs and what the requirements of running the school district are. We have been under a lot of pressure over this process, as certainly I've spoken about with the mayor and with many of you. This is a later process than we are used to. I believe for the first time in anyone's memory, the school department passed a budget before receiving a firm and clear indication from the mayor on what our total appropriation would be proposed at. And I understand why that is, and I appreciate Mayor Kincannon's collaborative approach. I appreciate the attempt to react to things as they come, try to meet the needs as they develop. But it has put us at a disadvantage, and we now sit in early June not having clarity and not having had clarity on our budget, which puts additional pressures on us. We have not been able to hire for FY25 to this point because of those uncertainties. We are facing potential shortfalls that could impact jobs at a later date than we would ever want to do. And so I come to you tonight to ask you to look at this budget beyond the politics and beyond the incidental needs, and think about the students. Think about what our kids require. You have other things to think about as well, and I hear those, and I understand those. I'm a taxpayer. I have a 2 public school teacher household income. We will feel this tax increase. We will feel it. And I know that others will feel it much more. But the school committee has a singular requirement. We are defined by Mass General Law to look out for our constituency, the only constituency in the state that can't vote for its representatives, and that's the students of Woburn. This budget represents their needs. And so I am asking the council, and Dr. Crowley will come up and explain in greater detail, but I'm asking the council to look at this budget and try to understand why our students need this so badly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you, Dr. Crowley?
I'm well, thank you. Superintendent from Northeast took my joke about the Celtics, so I wished him well.
You must have more than one in your pocket. Come on.
I'll do my best. No, first of all, I thank you to City Council. This is the 7th time I've actually presented a school budget to you, and so I don't feel as nervous as I should probably, but I'm nervous because the number
Wait a
is
minute.
so high.
14.53,
Yeah, well, I
and you
just
don't
said,
feel nervous?
the number's very high. So thank you to the City Council, thank you to the school committee for their support, and thank you to many of the principals, the leadership team. in the Woburn Public Schools. I speak tonight, but I have a great deal of support and teamwork that make the dream work here in the Woburn Public Schools. Our budgeting process begins in January. Actually, if you don't know, we have a new finance director, Alex Dizio. He's a Woburnite, but want to publicly say that he's been doing a great job since joining our team this late fall. And we started our budgeting process in January. We meet with all the principals and the department heads. In meeting with principals, one of the things that we started this year at the secondary level especially, we call it TLT, Teacher Leadership Teams, to try to get feedback from teachers about what their needs are. And then the principals then convey that to the finance office and then ultimately to me, and we begin the process of budgeting. As Mr. Lipset said, and I think you probably all have this, again, credit to my team, Mr. Dizio. We are trying to be as transparent and open with you, but also the entire community about what our needs are and where they are. And so if at times you need me to reference this, we can. Mr. Dizio has the budget on his computer ready to go, I hope. And so I want to frame a little bit, and Mr. Lipset talked to it. Woburn, over my time, has changed dramatically, but even this year has changed. We've enrolled over 350 students, as he alluded to. We've actually enrolled over 500, but we've lost students along the way to other communities. So there's a change of the culture. We call it churn in the educational world. People are coming and going. Teachers will tell you this. Their class lists in September look nothing like their class lists now. And so there's a lot of effort on the behalf on the teachers to welcome new students in almost every day. And it's a credit to them that they're doing that. One of my proudest moments this year happened in August, late August. We got a phone call that we were going to welcome new students into the Woburn Public Schools almost overnight. And we set up an enrollment center at the Alta Vista and welcomed over 70 students, newly arrived migrant students, into the Woburn Public Schools seamlessly. The next night we went to Comfort Inn and enrolled at the hotel. We will do whatever it takes at any time of day for our kids and the community. And I think it speaks well to the community of Woburn that it's gone so well. We've had meetings with the mayor relative to the migrant students or the homeless, the hotel. Our kids are great. They're coming in every day. We're providing counseling at the Malcolm White as a trial. We'd like to expand that to all schools next year. Our newly arrived students are primarily enrolled at the Alta Vista, Linscott, Malcolm White, and the Goodyear. One of the major costs affiliated with this is transportation, because the students come out of the Sonesta Hotel. They're not all going to the same school. Because of class size, we've had to move students into different grade levels. And so I'm just pointing out the complexity of what we did, and I think we did a great job as a school district and as a community. Mr. Lipset alluded to a percent of high needs students. What that is composed of are special education students. 25% of our kids, 1/4 of our kids, are now special education, qualify for special education services. So again, if you think about being a teacher and what that might feel like in your classroom, it's a lot different than it was just a few years ago when we were in the lower teens. 15% of our students are EL, they don't speak English. Again, a couple years ago, that was 5%. The challenge for teachers is real when these students are in front of you and you are having trouble communicating with them. The majority of our positions, and I'm sure you're going to ask, or I hope you do, are in special education and in EL to support our teachers. The other component that makes up the high needs population is the economically disadvantaged students. And the combination of those three buckets create this high needs population. In 2020, as a frame of reference, our high needs population was 45.4%, so pretty high. In 2024, it's 56.3%. So what I'm saying to you is 56.3% of our kids are high needs. That's challenging for our staff. That's what we're trying to do in this budget. We added reading specialists at the elementary school. We have students that are not reading at grade level. If you've been following in the newspapers, you've been seeing this. Woburn's no different. We need to maintain the reading specialists as an example. I'm very pleased to hear Mayor Concannon's remarks tonight. I almost feel like I just want to stop talking because he said quite a bit of what I was going to say. Actually, funny story, sort of. It's not a joke. No, I was thinking about it with Northeast Folk. I don't know if you remember, Mayor. When I first started, you and I took a field trip up to Northeast Folk because he was interested in learning what Woburn could do differently to support students so we wouldn't have, quote, so many students necessarily opting into Northeast Folk. And as a result, we started the Innovation Pathways. Science coordinator at the high school started Innovation Pathways, raised millions of dollars in grants, and we have advanced manufacturing and biotechnology pathways to students here in Woburn. We do need HVAC people, we do need electricians. We can't do everything here, but we're trying to do what we can to keep students from Woburn in Woburn, and that was one of the attempts, and that was a few years ago. So I guess I'll pause, because if you've seen this document, you know our budget drivers, you know the changing student population. I will tell you that our teachers are great. They deserve every penny. All staff are great. Paraprofessionals, the custodians, bus drivers. We have a great community of people helping our kids. And so I understand the percent increase. I'm trying desperately to come up with a joke. But it is a serious business, and so I'll stop and take questions.
Councilor Torre.
Dr. Crowley, thank you very much. I haven't been in a lot of the meetings with you and President Dillon and the mayor and our auditor, but I've followed the budget pretty closely, and we've had multiple conversations along with Chair Lipset and some other members of the school committee. So first off, thank you. Thank you to your team too, Maureen, Courtney, Alex, Andrew for the conversations, Jesse, and also the city side, with Mike and Charlie. You spent a lot of time on this budget. It's been reiterated multiple times that it's a historic one. We all know that. And we all know that it's going to have an impact on our residents, to include all of us, or most of us. With that being said, it seems like, based on my review of the budget and my conversations, that a majority of the money that's being asked for are for DESE mandates to address rising costs, contractual agreements. It's been stated on multiple occasions, both in school committee meetings and our committee meeting in the committee room, and during conversations, that this budget doesn't factor in any quote-unquote wish list items. It's what is needed to address the needs of our population. And Dr. Crowley, you mentioned our high needs population, our EL population, and how much it has increased over the last 3, 4, 5 years. That is attributable, the cost increase because of those populations increasing. Again, it's a tough situation to be in, but investing in our schools is an investment in our community. We want our schools to thrive, our children to thrive. It's a foundation of our community. So I do agree that regardless of whatever budget is passed, there'll be no vote tonight, and that will be on Monday. Again, it will have an impact on our taxpayers. However, my opinion only, if I recommend that the councils on this, that are sitting here tonight when they're looking over the budget and trying to make a decision, that they understand that making cuts to the budget, it will impact our schools much more negatively than it will benefit the bottom line. Taxes, I think at this point everyone understands that taxes are going to increase. For a frame of reference, cutting $1 million from a budget will have a small increase or small decrease in what the tax increase will be, but will have a detrimental impact on our schools. I do have a few questions that I'd like answered. One of them, I think you addressed them a little bit, but Chair Lipset, can you expand a little bit on kind of the pressures associated with this budget and kind of really what's driving them? I know we're looking at the major components and stuff, but if you could just elaborate a little bit more on that would be great.
Sure, and Dr. Crowley can as well, but we have seen, and I think we've all seen, inflationary pressures are real. They are real in our schools. They are real in terms of costs for contracts, costs for supplies, costs for the simple costs of doing business have gone up. At the same time, and as Northeast folks said, our adjustments from the state have not gone up at that same rate, and so that is an additional pressure. The needs of our students have increased, and this is true of our students who are defined as high needs, those with disabilities, those who are learning English, those who come from economically disadvantaged households. But it also, it presents in other ways as well. It presents in the social emotional needs of our students, which are, and I can tell you this both as a school committee member, as a parent, and as a classroom teacher, higher than I have ever seen. Our students, many are in crisis that were not several years ago. And I think the causes for that are varied, and I think that is a subject of great debate. But it doesn't matter what the reason is when they are in our buildings and they need our help. And the positions that we are trying to so desperately keep are the ones that are helping our students deal with those pressures. And I'm not just in this case talking about things like guidance counselors or adjustment counselors or things that might be necessarily associated with social emotional health, but things like art, things like music, things like language, right? Things like the enrichment that we can offer our kids, that we should offer our kids. These are the things that are there to support students who love them, and also there to support students who need them. They're to support students who rely on them to regulate, to find outlets, right? So that's a pressure. Rising transportation costs, the contracts of our we are in the process of, we're going to open up transportation negotiations. Like, these are pressures that are increasing due to a lot of the things, a lot of the pressures that are increasing all over, right? And I know that I'm missing some, and so I'll turn over to Dr. Crowley to fill in the gaps. But I mean, the fact that I'm missing some, and the fact that I've been speaking for as long as I have and I'm still missing some, speaks to the level of pressure that the schools find themselves in. The schools are, when socioeconomic pressures hit, the schools are often the first places that feel them. Our kids are often the first places, the first people that feel them. And the schools have become the safety net for a lot of kids. And what we are able to offer our kids is what helps get them through. And so, that I think is the bottom line pressure that we're feeling, is what we do benefits kids who need it. And benefiting kids who need it helps families, and it helps a community. Those ripple effects are great.
Do you want to add anything before I add?
No,
Yep, okay.
I didn't miss anything? Wow.
You stole the show. I think I know the answer to this question, or at least what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask it for the public. I know there's been a lot of time spent on this budget on both sides, between the mayor and your office. Is there anything that you feel like in this budget, if needed to, can be cut to save the citizens or the constituents of Woburn some of the burden that will come across once the budget's passed?
No.
Just to clarify the migrant money, I know the most amended budget had that funding offset decrease from 950 to 600. That is a reimbursement by the state for students that are coming in or attending school this coming year. Is that correct? I don't know. Either one can answer.
I can answer the question. I just want to ask you to clarify it.
Yeah, so I guess my question ultimately becomes, so the $600,000 offset that's put in the budget by the mayor, are we is that for students that we're expecting to enroll this coming year?
Sure.
Students already enrolled? And then my next follow-up kind of question of that is, does your budget that we're looking at here have costs or expenses associated with those students?
Okay. So the offset that you're referencing are for students that are going to enroll in September or that enrolled after October 1st of this year.
Okay.
And does that...
That answers
You want
part
more?
one. No, that answers part one. Then I guess, because what I'm really trying to get at is, does that migrant money that comes in, is it additional money that's needed to address these new students, or is the expectation that these post-October 1, the students that came in plus the potential of these new students that enroll in September, is there already money baked into the budget to address their needs, and then this money that comes in is more of a reimbursement to the city, to the school
Yeah,
department?
okay. So in the budget, our positions that we put in this year, because we fully expected these students to stay with us next year, we added a few EL teachers, family liaisons. So in the budget, our positions that we used this year and pushed them into the, we used the grant money and then we pushed them into the budget.
Okay.
There was another part to your question?
No, that's real. I was just trying to figure out is,
Yeah.
Because if we didn't have this offset in, so my thing, and I said it during the committee meeting, is I like the idea of the offset because with us having such a big budget increase, I don't think it would be fair to the constituents of the city to not bake that into the budget and have the school department come back with additional extra, quote unquote, extra income at the end of the year when that could have been given back to the city and be a potential savings to the residents, lessening the potential tax burden. That's the main.
Yeah, so if I, want me to keep going?
Go for it. I think I know what you're going to say, but go for it.
So I want to actually clarify this a little bit. This newly arrived grant is designed to support newly arrived students. It's not designed to, grants aren't designed to supplement, or supplant rather, they're supplement. And so the newly arrived grant that we're getting, the money should be used to support these students. And so, as I alluded to, I know the Sonesta houses the majority of our students, but they go to all 4 elementary schools, so we don't just run one bus, we run multiple buses to move the students to the schools that they attend. And so that's the intent of the money. I just got a request. We have a family liaison, Nellie, who's wonderful.
She is.
We have a partnership with Burlington where we do physicals for families. She asked if we could get a bus. I just say yes, because that's what we're supposed to be doing with this money. It's designed for that purpose.
Okay. I have one more question, and then more of a request, and then I'll finish up. Being one of the at-large counselors and representing the whole city, I've had a lot of conversations with many people throughout the city. And one of the big concerns, I've had mixed emotions, some that support the give the schools what they want, raise my taxes, and some that were on the other side. But one of the main questions that I have been getting was, what's to stop this from happening next year? What's to stop another 14% increase? And I think it's a little bit of an easier pill to swallow if it's more of a one-time expenditure, a one-time budget increase, and then it gets back down to normal. I know a lot of these are mandates, contractual agreements, addressing rising costs, and a result of underfunded budgets over the last 10-plus years. I understand that. But what's to stop us from being here discussing the same thing next year?
Well, I can tell you that schools can't run on a 3% budget anymore. It's just contractually, it can't happen. The expenses are too high every year, and so I want to be upfront about that. The mayor, ESSER money is gone away. This budget doesn't include ESSER money. I can't tell you what the percent for next year will be, because I don't know what the percent for this year will be. So if things don't get funded this year, I'm going to ask again next year.
Okay.
But I should be clear. This is unprecedented, and I really don't. I don't want to intend to advocate for a percent of this magnitude, but I tell the mayor or whoever, my job is to advocate for the students and staff of the Woburn Public Schools, and that's what I'm trying to do. I also am cognizant that we're a piece of the city of Woburn, and so I respect, the police, fire, DPW, all of the other departments. But I'm not doing my job if I'm not advocating for the kids.
And if I could just add to that, one thing that we do need to keep in mind is, we have seen such a dramatic student population increase this year. That will have an impact on our Chapter 70 in the coming year, or at least down the line. But in addition, there's a level of unexpected pressure there. Right? If we see continual population increase, that's something that we have to react to. We have a literal constitutional mandate to educate the students of Woburn, right? So there, I think, Dr. Crowley's absolutely right. This is not a budget that we wanted to present. It's not a number that we wanted to have, and we want to have a manageable number. We have to respond to our students' needs. I think that there are a lot of reasons why this number could and should be lower next year, a great deal lower, but there's a level of unpredictability to it, and I don't want to dance around that.
Do we gonna say something?
Yeah, I wanted to just let the council know, this budget didn't include 48 additional asks. And so, we really did our best to try to make sure that what we're asking for is what we need. And I didn't mean to be curt when I just said no. But for a lot of paraprofessionals support, mostly at the kindergarten, grade 1, every year the elementary principals come in and say, we'd like a paraprofessional in every kindergarten and grade 1. Obviously the youngest, most fragile learners need that support. The asks were for building substitutes, one person to be dedicated every day to each elementary school. The facilities department was asking for an assistant director. Obviously, very well that we have one director of facilities. There's no assistant director of facilities. having lived through this year with the facilities department, but also some of the departments at central office, you know, we have one payroll clerk. A district our size should have 2 or 3. We have Mr. Dizio and Patty, that's it. Like, we're pretty lean in a lot of spaces, and so when you think about building a bench, if something were to ever happen to a person, sick or ill, whatever the case may be, we don't have a lot of depth, and so again, I'm just sharing that there were multiple assets that were here on the original wish list that aren't in the budget.
And lastly, so I know we're not voting on this until Monday. I will say that I am inclined at this point to support the mayor's budget. I think it's a big number. I think it's going to be a lot. I think we're going to have some conversations, like Councilor Mercer-Bruin said, about how we're going to shield some of our vulnerable population, our seniors, our veterans, our low-income families. You know, I think that's going to be something that this council needs to take care of, no matter what the end result is. But I am inclined to support this budget. I do ask the school committee and the school department to continue the collaborative approach, those monthly meetings. I would love for the council and the school committee to meet somehow. I'd love to see the school committee or the school department become part of that WUSTAT program, like Mayor Concanon said. It seems to be a great program. I think Councilor DeMambro mentioned it last year when wasn't sitting in this seat, but there was a conversation on we need to start talking about the budget now, and this was right when it passed. And I think we need to consistently, being the largest department in our city, I think we need to consistently have open lines of communication, transparency, and conversation, so we can address things as they come instead of waiting for budget season and dealing with things like we're doing now. Even though I feel as though this approach this time around was much more collaborative than it has been in the past. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate all your staff's time. Thank you very much, and I am finished.
President Dillon.
How are we doing tonight? So, I'll start with the first question I asked the mayor. What is the budget you're looking for the public out there, so they know?
The 14.53%.
Okay, the dollar amount? Can you repeat?
90,366,621.
Thank you.
And 40 cents.
So,
And 40 cents, thank you, President Wahale.
I asked that because there's people at home watching this saying, well, what are they asking for? So
Sure.
just to be specific. My next question, and I've said this in chambers before and I'll repeat it, I just want to clear up what perhaps some other people that I've heard out in the public, that this budget isn't coming in like this because of the migrants situation. So I think that needs to be clear, and I'll even go a step further. I think the last time I asked this question, we had about 80 students. Has it increased?
I think 80 is about the right number.
And we're getting reimbursed. So this number that we're looking at here today is not the result of that.
No,
So that's one of the
thank you
things
for asking.
you hear out there, and it's important when we have the audience in an important setting like that we clarify it. Going on what you two gentlemen just spoke about people, the makeup of Woburn. I say this ironically when the first $2 million house just recently closed in Woburn, but I truly believe we're still a blue-collar city. I came from a blue-collar city. My father was a custodian over at the high school. My mother stayed home. We had 5 kids, a nephew that lived with us, and a grandmother. 1 bathroom in a 1,300 square foot home. Couldn't have had a better life. Couldn't have had a better childhood. When I say that, I say it because I don't want to think I'm talking down about blue collar. I know what it's like to really have to stretch a budget. And what you folks, you have to be conscious of what we're looking at. every time we come with a budget like this, we're looking at hurting and making more pain for the very people that you're trying to protect. I'll give you an example. The people out there working 2 jobs trying to make the mortgage. Well, this tax increase is going to hurt them. It may really do more than hurt them. It may bury them. I worry about that. The renters, that is a good population of our students. Believe me when I tell you, the landlords aren't going to say, I got a hefty tax increase. Not a problem, part of business. They're going to pass it right on to their tenants. This concerns me. We have our elderly. I think of my 93-year-old mother-in-law trying to stay in the house. So we don't take it lightly, your budget. But there's the other side. And that's why I was happy to see the working together with the mayor, school committee, myself, and really trying to figure this out. I wish the result was a little better, but it wasn't from lack of effort on everyone's part. I truly believe that. When I think about that part of it, that's why I think when Councilor Toro brought it up, that Woolstead, don't look at it as an overreach, that we're trying to get you involved to know where all the money's, or trying to take some power. Councilor DeManville said it last year, right after the budget. He says, I don't want to be in this same situation next year. Let's get working at it right away. That's what that will achieve. We need to get this right so we don't go through this every year. History shows we go through it. We're doing the same thing over and over. Takes a toll on you, takes a toll on the school committee, takes a toll on the mayor, the city council, and it takes a toll on our citizens. So whatever we gotta do, once we get this done, let's try to figure that out. My last point, I believe, was this 14% increase. We talk about contracts that we're obligated to. I say this not to put a rap on the teachers. They got their contract, that's behind us. I say this so that the public understands that 14+% increase, how much is that actually of our teachers' contract?
Is that the question?
Yes. Just the teacher's contract that we are contract obligated to.
So I can say that I don't have that number offhand, but if you went to the back of the budget package where each of the departments are broken out, and you went and looked at the breakout, let's see, by teaching staff, that would tell you exactly what. So you'd have to go sort of line item by line item.
Okay.
Of the
Would we
budget.
be safe to say a substantial amount of that increase?
Yes,
is
I
that
would say so.
carryover? Is it 30%? Is it 40%?
So 75% of the budget is salaries.
Correct, yeah.
That I can tell you.
Yeah?
And of the 75%, I think it's a 5 million, I'm looking quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are salaries.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Councilor Demers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Crowley, Chairman Lipset, thank you for being here tonight. As someone who sat on the school committee and went through the budget process 6 times, we basically, and my former colleague, Ms. Chisholm's in the crowd tonight, we probably on average had 3 to 5% for 6 years in a row. And I think the chickens are coming home to roost now. You know, I take great pride in our schools in Woburn. I support our teachers. I see the great professionals we have here tonight that, you know, I look at how we've built out some of our administration, our curriculum coordinators and everything, and I kind of wish I was still there to see how they were doing all this. And basically, I mean, you know, the school budget is more volatile than a NASA rocket, practically. I mean, when it comes to the high needs of children shifting, I'm obsolete in my knowledge of knowing what goes on in the school, and I was last serving on the school committee in 2020. I just want to go through a few line items. This isn't any pointed effort. I haven't made up my mind on any of it, but I just wanted to flush out my understanding so that I have a better understanding of these line item increases, because I know the cost of everything's gone up, and I just want to touch base on a few. So substitute teachers, I know we discussed that at our committee hearing. That line item is projected to go from 550 to 800,000. Is that based on expected need, a higher rate of pay that we adjusted, or is it a combo of both?
During COVID, we adjusted the rate of pay from $90 a day to $125 a day.
Right.
So we've also used ESSER money to pay for substitute teachers. That was an allowable expense with ESSER. We also have more staff out than we've had before for a combination of reasons. And so what we did was look back at a 3-year average. Mr. Dizio and Ms. McKinnon looked at a 3-year average and budgeted the right number. It's a number where we, you know, when we talk about reducing places, you can reduce a subline item. It doesn't affect a kid right in that moment.
Right.
But
you're playing poker with it, basically.
right. And
Okay.
so what we tried to do, and this is I'm glad you asked, what we tried to do is build the budget to accurately reflect what we need.
Okay. Next one would be the electricity line increase. So on the major components sheet, oh, not major components, my apologies. It was the 2 sheets previous, maybe, 3 sheets previous, the budget drivers. Electricity line increases is 635,000 or 5.6% of 5.61% of the budget for the drivers. But when I found the electricity line, it only showed that it was going up 195,000. Did I read that wrong?
If you could come up to the microphone.
It's going up to 1.9 million
Okay,
this
but
year.
from previous year, that's 635,000
Correct.
projected?
Yep.
Okay. On the curriculum department,
Stay close.
I just want to go through it relatively briefly. There's a line item there that 151,000 increasing to 396,449. I'm just curious as to why the jump.
Yeah. So we use ESSER money to,
And as my former colleague, Mr. Metters, used to say, these are leading questions. I'm trying to flush out some of these areas, so, sorry to interrupt you.
yeah, so we're looking to implement high-quality instructional materials in the curriculum department. We're updating outdated printed materials. We're maintaining our elementary interventionists who were funded in ESSER previously. We have lead teachers now. That was contractually negotiated. That's funded through the curriculum department. And because of the professional development on the half-days that we now offer, we're having people come in or paying teachers to do things and that is leading to the increase.
Great. When it comes to paraprofessionals, I see we have 140 full-time equivalent paras in the district. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, and maybe Maureen might have an answer for me, but what total out of the 140 are 1-to-1? I know that kind of puts you on the spot, and it's something that you can get back to me with if you don't have the number now. It's not something that
I don't have the, I'll get back
I'm
to you.
just curious
Yeah.
because the one-to-one is something that we have to do.
Right.
And, you know, when I was on the school committee, one of the things that I always talked about was, I'd love to have more full-time teachers,
Yes, so I
full
would say
classroom folks.
that the majority of our paraprofessionals are in our programs, and whether or not they are identified as one-to-ones, they are in classes where you might have, usually it's more of a 2-to-1 ratio.
Sure.
But the majority of your paraprofessionals are in your programs with high-need students, and those are the students that we are keeping in district as opposed to sending them out of district. There's a very small percentage of paraprofessionals that are utilized in resource rooms with larger
Okay,
populations.
and I thought that was a point and distinction that needed to be made here tonight. So I appreciate that information. Thank you. I know during our committee meeting, the curriculum coordinator positions were brought up, and I did my best to vociferously back those up. I think that's a great ad that we did when we had lean budgets, trying to make sure that we had horizontal and vertical alignment throughout the district in our curriculum. And I just want to caution my colleagues, any type of cut, if we're not looking to look at forward-facing teachers in the classroom, or the mandated positions or required by state statute, we would put at peril an important addition to the school district. I think that's one of the key pieces over the last 15 years that we've really done, and also expanding for our high needs. Let's see. On the full-time employees that are going to be added to this budget, is there any way we could get a breakdown of those, like, separate from the budget? Is there a list of the 16? Because I know, Dr. Crowley, you just mentioned that there were 48 additional asks. I'd love to see that, too,
Sure,
just for the future.
yeah.
Because, a majority of what occurred during this budget process is there was sticker shock. We saw the number, especially me. I don't think, when I was on the school committee, I had to do much more than I have in this budget, because I've actually had to read this budget and look at it and go line by line to see where these changes have been made, because we didn't have much for increases when I was in the school committee. So I think knowing what your plan is, what your department's asks are in the future, will better help me support what we can do in the future for our schools. Woburn's changing. And, there are some folks that are scared of that. But I think what we need to do is see what we have in front of us and address the needs that we have and our responsibilities to our kids. One of the unfortunate things is folks are in a silo. They kind of only look at our school district from when they last attended or when their last child graduated. It's markedly different. When I was in high school, when I graduated Woburn High School in 2003, our non-white population was 3%. That's grown tremendously. Our socioeconomics have shifted, the high-needs students, ELL, everything across the board. When I look through this budget, other than hacking away at little $25,000 or little $50,000 and line items that you may have to come back here and ask for us for more money in March, I do not see any waste or any money that, any cuts would do a great job in preserving the impact on the taxpayer. I'm not gonna make cuts that are gonna hurt the school district to save someone $25. I can't do that. I don't have that, my conscience won't allow me to do that, because I think there's not much discretionary spending here. Okay, so I just wanted to speak up on that, because, there's a lot of talk in the community, there's a lot of talk amongst the elected officials here, and I just wanted to get that off my chest, because I think, this is our moral responsibility to our students. Our classrooms and schools should be cathedrals of learning, but they're more and more so social service centers now. And that's a responsibility that we have to pick up. And I'm proud to say that I served on the school committee, support the schools, and I've got some more work to do in terms of looking at it and making my decision for Monday. But I just want to ask you a few yes or no questions, because I think these are important to note also when we do the budget. Do our students have to pay bus fees?
No,
Do our students have to pay athletic fees?
no,
Do our students have activity fees?
no,
Do our students pay technology fees?
no,
And does every child get a lunch that needs one?
yes.
So I think we're doing a great job in that effort. And I've got a lot to think about before Monday, but I thank everybody for everything that they do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Council Papalato.
Thank you. Clearly, we're in an extraordinary situation here. I mean, there's a lot of things lining up that are it's driving all this. Clearly, your budget driver page lays it out pretty nicely. But this is an extraordinary amount of money that we're asking for here. And I checked internally, this is more than twice as much as the highest increase we've ever gotten out of the schools. More than twice as much as what's been asked for in the past. So when you look at the inflation, you look at the economy out there, and you look at the other school systems that are out there, and what they're doing, and the struggles that they're facing, it's just an awful lot that we're asking from the taxpayers. And when I look at the people that I've talked to in my ward and out of my ward, the people up at the senior center, there's going to be a significant issue with them coming up with this extra amount. And what I'm being told is it's going to be in the $600 to $800 for an average household. $600 to $800 increase on an average house in Woburn. So an average house in Woburn, I think it was $580 or $585 or some number like that. So when you do the math, there's going to be significant increases to everybody's tax bill. The other point I want to make is that, and I totally get when you said, your job is to give the students of Woburn the best possible education that you could give them. And I agree with you 100%. That is your job. Our job it's twofold. Yours is singular. You're looking at it through one lens, right? We need to look at it through different lenses because we have a taxpayer component to this that we have to factor in. And so when we're looking at both of these things, you look at it differently because you have to look at it differently. I'll tell you, my phone's rung off the hook. I'm getting emails. Everywhere I go, they're concerned about what this is going to do. And the other question I have is, we're looking at this increase of whatever it is, 14%. So that's assuming that the $79 million that is already in the budget is being stretched to the limit. So there might not be a lot of savings that you could find in the additional ask that you're asking for right now. But again, there's $79 million there. There's got to be some savings that you can get out of there. And I know we're not going to save $5 million. I have no illusions of that. But there's got to be some amount of savings that we can take to lessen the burden on the taxpayers. You know, I certainly would support the largest increase we would ever have, but this goes beyond that. It goes beyond what I can comfortably support and what the residents that I speak to, who put me into this position to speak for them. And I just feel like we need to find some percentage to get this thing reduced for me to support this. Thank you.
Any other councilors?
Can-
Councilor Mercer-Bruin?
I was-
No.
Well, good. Superintendent Crowley.
Thank you. I hear you. Thank you for your comments. One of the things that I just want to highlight to the council is the operational side of running a school district. We have contractual obligations to our staff by June 15th to let them know if they have a job. And so any significant cuts, reductions to this budget, depending on the number that you're alluding, that you're going to vote on Monday, will give us 3 days to let our staff know that they may or may not have a job in June. So I'm just being.
So the other part of this is that, you know, the teachers are on the front lines. They got the toughest job of anyone. I'll always believe that. But this budget isn't just teachers. It goes far beyond that. There's all kinds of middle layers of management and assistant this and director of that. There's a lot of positions in there, and I'm sure that most of those are needed. But there's got to be some kind of reduction we can add into this to offset some of this. That's all.
Councilmember Spruan?
This is, nobody here takes this lightly. I don't think I've slept a full night before 3 a.m. since this budget came up. I have sat in this seat for 18 years and never, ever once thought about not supporting a school budget. Never even crossed my mind. And that's what's keeping me up. Because I don't know if I can at this number for exactly the same reasons that Councilor Papalato expressed. The very same people that we're trying to help. Matt, you talked about the percentage of economically challenged students in our city. This kind of tax increase could leave some of them homeless. This is huge. And I know everybody on this council and everybody on the school committee, can we absorb this? Yes. Will we have to make a few adjustments? Sure. But there's a lot of people that aren't going to be able to absorb this, including our seniors. And we say, well, we haven't raised taxes in a long time. It's been a long time. The city of Woburn might not have raised our tax or increased our per thousand, but the taxes have gone up a lot because the value of the property has gone up. So for us to say, well, we're still collecting all of that revenue. So I'm really, really struggling with this. I want to do what we can do for our students, for our teachers. They got their raises, and you know what? Some of that was long overdue. But to Councilor Papalato's comment, there's got to be somewhere we can find some savings. I'd like to think maybe we could find it on the city side. We can't. That's all but level funded. I can think of maybe one, off the top of my head, one position that could be eliminated. But really, there isn't any savings. And it's just really hard. It's really hard. We need to take care of everyone. So I think it's important that people understand what this cost is for the community. I don't think a lot of people really know what that number is, so it's time to start sharing it. And I'm just urging you, if there's anything that you can do, please, please do it for the residents of the city. And I applaud you all for doing what you were elected to do, to look out for that population. But we have a much bigger burden here, a much bigger burden, and a responsibility to do it, no matter what. So thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for everything. I hope we can figure it out.
Well, you could call me at 3 a.m. if you want. I'll be up.
I'm on it. Look at the bags, right?
I know. Not yours, mine.
I'm
No,
really,
I don't mean to make light of
but
it,
it's
and I
true.
appreciate the
It's-
conflict.
And I've spoken with the mayor. I've spoken with Andrew, we had a long conversation yesterday, and I think some of my frustrations were coming through, but they're frustrations because I'm worried about our constituency and how this is really going to hurt them. And what about the school is so important. This, like I said, there's the conversations about utility bills not being able to be paid, or maybe even rent not being able to be paid. But then there's the other conversations that might happen. I'm sorry, maybe you can't skate this year, or maybe you can't have those dance classes. Those are real things that will happen too. And I'm not undermining the importance of what we do in our schools. I'm not. But all of those things matter, right? So I'm mostly concerned about when we talk about people potentially being pushed out of their homes. That is very difficult for me to get my arms around.
Thank you. Again, my concern with, and I just said it and I'll repeat it, is it's June 5th, or 6th rather, June 6th. I don't even know what day it is. You're going to vote the budget on the 10th at a number. On May 14th, I believe, I was with the council, and we've been operationally frozen because we can't hire. We're losing people to other districts right now. And if we have to make radical changes to the budget, and I understand, I genuinely understand where you're coming from, my concern is our staff and our kids. And again, we're speaking the same language, and I just want to kind of repeat, and I do respect your support and opinion, so thank you.
Councilor DeMambro.
Well, we were here a year ago, and I did say it. We got to start working on the budget tomorrow for 2025. Well, we're here. We're at 14.53, and I struggle with it as well. And the reason I struggle with it is because, if anybody knows me by now, I do my homework. So I read all the line items, not only here, but in the big book. I've read each and every one of them. Went through 23 department heads in the last couple of days. We talked with every single one of them. I not only talk to them when we come to a city council meeting, I talk to them during the course of the year. Our fire department, our DPW, our police department, so on and so forth, inspectional services, engineering. We went through all of them. They run lean. And the services they provide are unbelievable, especially the fire and the police. They go by my house multiple times a day. If I had $1 for every time they went by my house, I could pay this budget in cash. They do a lot. But I struggle because I go to the senior center and I see all the seniors there. I was there for the Memorial Day celebration they had there, ceremony. The place was full. But then I go to graduation ceremony last week. And I see all those vibrant faces walking across that field, so full of joy that they completed the task of getting their diploma, especially through these last few years with COVID and everything else, and the hell that those kids went through. And I can appreciate everything that your staff, your administrators, and your teachers did. That was a crazy time. We all got through it. And for those kids to come through, I saw it last year, and I saw it again this year. As a matter of fact, I believe the principal said that their biggest struggle was dealing with COVID, and that will be their memory. So when it comes to a budget like this, I struggle, because it's not like I haven't done my homework on this. It's not like I haven't spoken to the mayor, or you, Mr. Lipsitz, or you, Dr. Crowley, or Charlie, anyone that's involved in this. And even though you may not see me present, I watch the school committee meetings at home. Granted, it's with popcorn, but I do watch them. And I'm listening. And I listen to the teachers. I have friends that are teachers in the Woburn system. I listen to their stresses. I worked in the town of Lexington for 10 years in the school department facilities. I used to speak to teachers every single day, multiple teachers every day, principals. We were the custodians to the teachers, not so much for the buildings, but for the teachers. And you build a relationship with them, and you hear their struggles, especially after the bell rings and the kids go home. And I know that the teachers deal with emails at all hours of the night, and they want quick responses from the parents, and they deal with the students, with all of the struggles that the students go through, and issues and emotions. But again, this is something, being this budget has come in at 14.53, a historical amount that's never been in front of any one of our eyes before. I strongly recommend the WooStat. I think we should have started that and implemented that last year. But let's try to do it for maybe fiscal year 2026, starting tomorrow. I'm not sure how this is going to pan out for a vote. I know I'm struggling with it, and I will struggle the next 4 days with this, because again, I see the seniors, and I see people that are barely making it with their fixed incomes from their pensions, some of which have been on them for 10 or 15 years, so they're limited. To President Dillon's point, his mother-in-law, 93 years old, living in a home. How much longer? Most of the time, people worry about health. In this case, it could be financial reasons. I struggle with that. But again, I see the kids. And in today's economy, which is global, we need to give our students the best education they possibly can get. And even if they don't want it, you got to pound it into them so they can stay competitive in the next 30, 40 years. Because that's our savior. They're our saviors. They're going to carry us. So I'm going to keep continuing to struggle with this. I appreciate everyone's hard work, especially the teachers, the administrators. I know what your struggles are, and I'm going to struggle with this. And I know my colleagues are too. So I appreciate all of the efforts, all of the hard work, because this doesn't happen overnight. But we are going to have to keep looking at it. And come Monday, we will vote. But I can say this, I'm struggling. Thank you.
If I could just respond to that. The school committee has struggled with this budget as well, right? This is, I mean, as I said in my opening remarks, this is not a budget that we wanted to present to you. This is not a budget that we were looking to bring forward. This is, in our estimation, the budget that our kids need. And those kids are going to walk across that same stage. And what I want them to walk across that stage with is and what I want their parents in the stand to see is that they received the kind of education that we can be proud of. That they received an education that didn't, we're not gold plating the doorknobs of the classrooms, right? We're not taking kids to school in limousines, but that we can provide them with the same kinds of things that they can look, not even to, I'm not talking about Lexington or Winchester, but that they can look to like communities and see. And so that's the balance that I also have to keep in mind, right? And again, like I know, City Council President Dillon alluded to growing up in a 1,300 square foot home, right? Mine's 1,400 square feet, right? It is not glamorous. My wife and I don't make a lot of money. We're going to feel this, right? We're going to experience it, and I know that others will experience it more. I also know that, and believe me, I realize the impact of a year-to-year tax increase like the one we're looking at, but I also realize that, to Councilor Mercer-Bruin's point earlier, Woburn has increased its taxes, but when you compare us essentially to anyone, I mean anyone on a year-to-year basis, that number is lower. I have done these comparisons. I have looked not just at tax rate, I have looked at impact on family households. I have looked at impact, as compared to income. No matter how you slice this, we have fallen behind in our obligations to fund some of the basic things that we need to fund. Now, I can't speak to police or fire or DPW, and I know that those departments are also hurting, and I know that those departments also need increases. I don't see that as something that's against one another. I don't see an increase to the schools as something that hurts DPW or police or fire. What I see is that we need to make a choice to invest. And the reason why we are here with this budget now is in part because we haven't made that choice. And so, this is not something that's within my power, obviously, right? But when I look at our school budget right now, what I see is not just the needs of now, but the needs of previous years coming to now. And that's what I want to preserve for the kids who walk across that stage, right? That's what I want to make sure that they have access to is what we owe them, right?
I just want to not, my apologies for the intro. I just want people to understand, the residents, people watching, this is why we bring in the commercial that we try to bring in, the industry. It's to offset these costs. Yes, the traffic is a juggernaut sometimes, yes, at 5 o'clock. We all have to face it. But that commercial base and those industries offset these types of costs. But it doesn't help when the state is pushing apartments upon us and housing and so on and so forth. So when those come in being forced, we have a increase in population, an increase in students, and so on and so forth, that we all have to somehow develop some sort of a budget to cover all of it, so we can give our residents and our constituents and our students and children the best that we can possibly provide them. And I have no doubt that you guys, everybody's trying their damnedest to do just that. It's a very complex, very diverse community we have, and it's very, very important that that system is equally balanced, and we all pay attention to when there's a recession, there is, high interest rates that cause these commercial businesses to evaporate. They disappear. The Vale, we were supposed to have in Ward 5, many commercial buildings that were going to go up, but because of the increased interest rates, they left. Davis Group down at the Showcase Cinemas, they left. They pulled out. CCF, they're subdividing lots and selling them off just to finance the projects that they do have. My point with all of that is we're trying desperately to offset the burden of costs from our residents. I think one of my counselors said it. This is the perfect storm, and we're in it. We're in the thick of it. So we're all going to have to come together, and we're going to have to figure it out and get a number that works for everyone. And I mean everyone, including everyone that's watching us as we speak. And that's going to be the goal in the next 4 days. Thank you.
If I could just add one more thing, and I don't mean to come back to you, and it's not regarding the same topic. I just wanted to come back, because WUSTAT has been mentioned a few different times. And I know that Mrs. Chisholm would be very upset with me if I didn't mention, the school department and the school committee works on a very different level, right? WUSTAT is not exactly the system that we use, but the school committee is bound by law to be the manager of our budget, and we do so in public. We have public meetings on a regular basis where we do largely what I heard Mayor Concanon describing from WUSTAT. We go through our budget line by line. We look at overages. We adjust our budget asks based on that. We do it in public. Mrs. Chisholm's Finance and Personnel Committee meets bi-weekly to go through that. And believe, I've been on the Finance Subcommittee meeting. I have been on the Finance Subcommittee meeting with Dr. John Wells, I have seen the level of small, like, so I have never seen anyone question sandwiches more than I have seen Dr. John Wells do it. These are the kinds of investigations into our spending that we do as a matter of course, and we do it in public, right? Not, you can come to it, I can come to it, the mayor can come to it, my next door neighbor can come to it. Those are public documents, right? So I hear the value in WUSTAT, and what I would just say what I don't want is for the public to leave with the impression that we don't do this. We do this. We do it regularly and we do it well.
My follow-up to that, though, is it's a tool in the drawer. And when you have budgets like this, we're going to use every tool we got in that cabinet. And if WUSAT is needed so that we have another tool that we can utilize to try to nail this down so we're not doing this year after year, then that's something we seriously need to take a serious look at. I understand that we have the communication with the meetings and this and that are televised and so on and so forth. But when it comes down to a software type system that'll show you numbers and budgets and bars and graphs and pies, that's what we need. So that we don't come to a 14.53 that's going to affect everybody in this community, not just the people in this room, everyone. So if WUSAT is a tool that we're not using, then we got to get to using it. Because we're not going to leave any tool left untouched in the drawer and then expect the residents and the constituents to say, okay, well, city council said so, school committee said so. No. We want hard data that we can show them and say, this is what we've tracked over the last 12 months, and that's how we got to this number. So I would suggest we start using that tomorrow. Thank you.
Councilor Campbell?
Hi, welcome. Our budget over the past 10 years has been very lean. You know, for the city hall, most of the departments have been level funded. And I know that's been very hard on them. And this year, finally, we have a little bit of a breath for the departments where they might be able to add a little bit of money here, a little bit there. And I'm very thankful for that. But what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is that the mandates coming from the state, in my view, are crippling the school systems. And I'm extremely disappointed in this. I know someone had said earlier, let it not be political, and I'm not meaning it to be, but it's obvious what it is. They're not even considering what the students are needed, what they need, and they're just putting these mandates on you. And they're not understanding what the financial burden is for the school systems. And so once again, I'm very disappointed with that. The amount that you're asking, yes, is an exorbitant amount of money. But when I look at, you said 56.3% of our students are high needs students for many different reasons. COVID, I think, was a big piece of it for a lot of the kids. We do have, 15% need help in English, speaking English, and other things. What do the teachers do? They have a classroom where they have students that aren't speaking English. They have a couple students that have disabilities. And then you have the rest also there, and they're all trying to learn. So how do we do that? How do we do that when we have the mandates coming down from the state, telling them, first of all, what they can do, what they have to do, the guidelines they have to meet? We're really between a rock and a hard place. My hope is that, and I said this at an earlier meeting, my hope is that the city council can look into getting some sort of tax rebates, and I spoke quickly with the mayor about this, for our seniors, to help them through this increase that might take place. The more vulnerable population that need help. I have spoken to a lot of people that really do, they're paycheck to paycheck, with their property values going up, they're struggling very hard because their income isn't increasing. I also would like to look into, and I've spoke about this before, using some of our free cash to help offset this huge amount of the budget that you're asking, the 14%. I don't know if it's possible, excuse me, I don't know how much can even be used. I do realize that once we touch that, we're gonna need it for next year, I understand that. But I also understand that by doing that, the taxes will not go up as much. That's going to be a burden maybe from year to year, and honestly, I don't know quite the ramifications of how that works, and that will be something that hopefully the mayor and Charlie can help us with. That by doing that, maybe the tax rate won't be so extravagant, so high for these individuals, the seniors, and everybody across the board. So that's my hope, that we can find a way to fund it through funds that are already coming into the city, surplus funds that maybe we can use for this. We call it a rainy day fund. Well, I think it's a rainy day if we have to increase between $600 and $800 per household on average. So we're talking 1,000, we're talking more than that for some individuals. I don't know what that is. I don't know how much we can take out, and I don't even know if it's completely feasible, but I do know that our auditor knows, and I do know that our mayor knows, and hopefully we can work together to see what we can do about using some of those funds to help in this particular situation. Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Mercer-Bruin.
I had something else to say, but I would like to, through the chair, to Councilor Campbell. That is so tempting to use the free cash. It really is, because it would feel like some instant relief. But it is one of the worst ways to fiscally manage anything. And we must protect that AAA bond rating, especially now in this environment where we have the interest rates where they are. I believe me, you and I talked about it, and I was actually thinking, yeah, maybe that's a way we can do it, but it's just not financially responsible. And I'm sure Charlie and Mayor Concanon will speak to that at some point on Monday. But thank you, because we do need to think outside the box, and I'm hoping the school will do the same. To Councilor Papalato's point, the teachers and their salaries are contractual. I wouldn't expect that we would lose any of those folks. Nobody wants anyone to lose a job. We don't. But at the end of the day, yes, we have a responsibility to give the best education to our students that we can afford, that everyone can afford. And that is our predicament, right? So, Andrew, you said we have to invest, and you're right. You're absolutely right. We have to invest. But we can't invest everything at once. We can't jump off a cliff and say, I'm going to put all my money into Bitcoin. And I'm not saying the schools are, you understand what I'm saying, right? So everybody wants to invest, but if somebody came to you with an amazing opportunity, like the Woburn Schools is an amazing opportunity to invest in, you wouldn't give all of your pennies, right? Because you just can't. We can only do so much. So that's what this conversation is about. How do we get the best, how do we repair some of the issues that have happened over the years, right? We're not going to repair all of them overnight. We just can't. The burden is too high. It's too high for most of the people that live in the city. So, again, I can't thank you enough. I know this process has been so difficult for everyone. I'm a little disappointed to hear the response about WUSTAT, though. That seems like kind of something that everybody here would want to do. And I know you have your meetings, but I can tell you, I've heard from many people in this city, they have a hard time understanding the budget and understanding how money gets moved from one place to another. And, I think it would be very helpful to our citizens if WUSTAT was on the table. But, again, thank you again to everyone here tonight, and we'll see what happens, I guess, on Monday.
Councilor Elijah Ferrullo.
I'll be real quick. Can I go to WUSTAT to stop, Matt? WUSTAT's not a budget thing. Money isn't the driving force behind WUSTAT. Money's very rarely talked about at the table at WUSTAT. It's these management scientists from University of Massachusetts that live in your world that go across districts, and they have metrics and how other people do stuff. I was the first guinea pig that had to go to WUSTAT day one with Sarah Stanton and Mayor Galvin, and ultimately I grew into it for 7 years. I got WUSTAT. It's not a money thing. Money's secondary to WUSTAT. It's pretty cool with efficiency and taught us stuff like that. So I love WUSTAT. That's beside the point. I learned over the last few days a few things, and Andrew and I talked a lot. One thing, and I didn't work with a lot of your administrative staff. They're new since I left. But I learned over the last week that Maureen Ryan, in her profession, is so well respected from special needs people. And I mean, I was at a graduation party where there are two people that are out district placement, and I'll be very careful with my words. The parents, the child, the other child was nonverbal. It was the whole thing. But I just learned so much of the respect that Maureen, and I don't know Maureen Ryan. I mean, I just know that the respect that she has from the thing. I thank you for that. I'm scared to death of the numbers. I'm scared to death of the money. I share all of their sentiment of the concern going forward. But I just want to compliment you with that. Second compliment coming. I spend a lot of time in the schools still. I read across America. I donated some money to field days and field trips over the last couple of weeks. The teachers that deal with, I guess I can call them migrant children that are in the school system. These kids are polite. They come into school clean, ready, fired up, and ready to go. Great for welcoming them into the community. I have a money question. If they move from our community to get established in another community, are we obligated to transport back for education, or do they move on to the other community?
That's a good question.
Sometimes I have good questions.
Every now and again.
Not very frequently.
Not very frequently. That's
To answer your question, if we did have this happen, Mr. Ferrullo, I was going to call you chief, but so we did have this happen around the holiday season where we had, I believe it was 12 families that were in the Comfort Inn on Montvale moved, and they moved to Danvers, to a Comfort Inn in Danvers. This is the state just moving. I mean, this happens all the time. They had the right to keep attending school in Woburn, and we would have split the cost of the transportation with Danvers because they have a stay put right to stay in the school of their origin. And so one of the things that is in the budget we talked about a little bit tonight is our homeless transportation is about $450,000. We transport kids from all over the state virtually here because they started here and may live in Boston now. We have, I believe, as far west as Worcester. So they have that right, and these students would also have that right. They also, in this case, all 12 families decided to enroll in the Danvers Public Schools, for the reasons that make sense. So if a student is sick, they don't have to figure out a way to get to Woburn from Danvers. And it allows them to become part of the community.
How long does, if you don't mind me asking, how long does that, can they come back next year too, I guess is the question? Do you own them for 12 years or is it a 1 year?
Once they enroll in another district, they are.
No, but the people that left and choose to come back, can they come back in perpetuity until they graduate? So
No.
if I go up to Danvers and I choose to come back to Woburn Schools, you have to transport me. How long does that right to come back last?
If you enroll in the Danvers Public Schools, you can't come back.
No, if you're here, you're Woburn, I move to Danvers, I choose to come back to Woburn.
Oh, indefinite.
So they could graduate from Woburn High even though they're in kindergarten now? And you have to drive them
Well,
back?
I'm hearing, did Maureen say? It's McKinney-Vento, it's a law.
Okay.
And so it's a federal law. So as long as they're designated as homeless, they have that right.
And then one last thing, all the pomp and circumstance, I'm very concerned about next year because public safety's taking a hit, and Andrew said the relationship really isn't there. The bucket's only so big, and you guys are taking the majority of the bucket, but there's other people that are, there. I'm real worried if this comes back next year that it's gonna put us in a predicament. And all positive, I love what you do. You and I have been together for a long time. But it's just that I really worry about what steps we can take toward next year, toward managing this on a month-to-month basis. I'm on the team. I'm just really scared to death of the money. But thank you for all you do. And Maureen, I don't mean to embarrass you, but thank you.
And could I just quickly answer that? We're scared to death of the money too. I think we're scared to death of what happens if the money's not there. And what that does to our staff, what that does to our kids. Because, again, I've heard from all the counselors on this, but there is not hidden savings in this budget. It's not there. We would have to dig deep, and I worry about what that would wind up meaning. And so I hear you. I hear everyone. This is not like this. I wouldn't want to sit in your chair. I don't want to sit in my chair, but I wouldn't want to sit in your chair. There's no easy answer here. There's no. I don't. This is one of those situations that is going to keep everyone up at night. But I want to make sure that we know that reducing this budget is not going to be easy, and it's not going to be easy on anyone, and it's not going to be easy on our staff, and it's not going to be easy on our kids. And so I just want to make sure that that's clear too.
I mean, if you look up in Lou's Ward, the growth at the end of Commerce Way, that's headed your way. I mean, the huge growth up there with apartments. But it's also heading Chief Rufo's way and Chief Kenton's way and DPW's way. And the police department is virtually the same size as it was on May 18th, 1980 when I was sworn in. And I mean, it's 1 or 2 off, but it's really the same. And I'm a whole supporter of you guys, and the numbers up there in the thousands, Darlene can probably correct me, 2,000.
2,000, the apartments,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, through the chair, for the MBTA 3A community?
No, what's under construction up there now on both sides of the train tracks?
1,500
Yeah,
approximately?
Right now, you have 250 online to be built at 0 New Boston Street, 425 at Fairfield on New Boston Street or the end of New Boston Street.
So those are all heading
And
your way too.
Emblem's already up and running. so-
And Emblem's up and running
Right,
at
so
3
that's
something.
3-something.
I'm done. Thank you, guys.
President Dillon.
Yes, I just want to thank Councilor Campbell for, again, thinking outside the box about the free cash. But I do hesitate to think of that option based on our bond rating. From myself checking into it, I understand that's how we're able to borrow money at a lesser interest rate. And as an example, water treatment plant down at the pond we're doing for 21 or 22 million. If my memory serves me correct, the amount is like a 4% interest, and that's because we had the triple rated bond rating. If I said 6 years ago anything about PFAS, everyone would look at me and say, Dylan lost it again. So that's truly, not that this is anything, I don't want to discount what we're dealing with here, but that's what that rainy day fund is truly for. So we're able to borrow for these unforeseen important issues. Nothing more important than drinking water. So, just to explain how I understand it works. But thank you for looking at every option, and that's what we're here to do. And I know we all wish we had a magic wand, but I don't see one right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilor DeMambro.
Just to expand on Councilor Ferrulo said, that population up in my ward, in Ward 6, we all know is growing, with apartments, so on and so forth. Then with the housing plan that's coming down, that I just read in the paper, at 6.8 million, there's also the Community Housing Act, which will enable people to take a single-family home and turn it into a two-family home with accessory dwelling. So your population's going to go up in the next few years. It's these, again, state mandates. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, and it's not to muddy the waters, but it's hitched to this, maybe not today, but it will be in the very near future. We still have to look at the Alta Vista School, the Linscott School, and the dilemma that's been going on over there for the last 25, 30 years. The residents up in North Woburn wanted a new school. They've been saying it year after year after year. We know what those schools are. I'm on the school building planning committee. I've toured these schools. That school's in far worse shape than when I was even there, and it was in tough shape when I went there, and that's back in, well, 1977 or so. As well as the Kennedy, as well as the Joyce. I just want everybody to be aware, not to lose sight of that, because at some point we're going to have to wrangle with those two grizzly bears too, and those are big numbers. So even more of a reason why we have to be as vigilant as we possibly can be when it comes to these budgets, because I've sat in those meetings in planning and with the MSBA and how to finance this, that, and the other thing, and how to go about it. There was conversation of shifting some of that burden to the taxpayers. We have to keep that in mind. And I don't want to muddy the waters on this particular budget, but this is also hitched to this budget. And it may not be this exact one, but something tells me it's coming next year. And we're going to have to wrestle with that. And I don't know how we're financing this year. And then we have to wrestle with that matter come next year on top of whatever your percentage is. And this is why I say we have to start thinking about not only this, but next year's as well, starting immediately, because it's never going to stop. And if we're not diligent with these budgets, it's unsustainable. And we all know that. It'll be unsustainable for our taxpayers. And I want everybody to keep that in mind. Thank you.
I could just quickly answer that. And I appreciate those pressures, and I appreciate you looking forward, too. I mean, the building projects that we are looking at are necessary, and they will be expensive, and you know that as well or better than anyone. I do want to say a couple quick things. And again, you know this, and I know this. I want to make sure the public is aware. The budget that we have in front of you is the result of a diligent process. This is the result of, as we've said, gathering input from our teachers, from our staff, from our building principals, trying to understand the needs that we have, and then making very, very hard choices to bring that down to the level that we think is as low as it can go before we start really damaging things, right? And so that diligence happens before this budget ever comes to you. And that diligence happened in meetings with the finance subcommittee and in meetings with the school committee, and we have explained how that works and have gone through this with the mayor. And so we have spent a lot of time on this budget, and we have looked at it hard, and we have looked at it from a lot of angles. And I know that you know that. I just wanted to make sure that the public is clear that this is not just sort of what we woke up this morning and dropped on your table, right?
I understand that.
And I also just want to point out, as we talk about looking forward, you're right. I think we are going to see some increase in population in North Woburn. And I think if we are going to adequately meet the needs of the kids who are going to come in to North Woburn and to any other area of the city where we're seeing expansion, the worst thing we can do is take a step back now, because we will just have to build back those supports later.
Councilor Campbell?
Yeah, just one quick comment on the free cash. Thank you, Councilor Dillon. President Dillon, sorry. I do understand that if we used some of the money from free cash, that it affects our bond rating. I'm not saying to fund the whole school budget, the increase of, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about 3 million, 4 million, something in some surplus that we could use. When I started on the council, we were probably maybe at $20 million in free cash, and it's gone up year after year after year. We're over $40 million. I understand we need that to keep our bond rating where it is, and I understand that it will help us with capital purchases and keeping the percentage of the different projects that we do down. But I also believe that where that increase is coming because of the real estate boom that has taken place in Woburn, where our homes at one point were $500,000, now they're up to $800,000. That extra fees, that extra amount is coming into our coffers, is coming into the city. And I did speak to Charlie about this. And I don't know what the amount is, but in my mind, there is a way to use $3 or $4 million or something, I don't know what the amount is, but enough to take the edge off of the amount that we would end up using to then tax the residents of Woburn. I would think that would really help. Once again, I'm not sure. I'm going to keep looking into it. But I just want to make it clear, of course, I understand what it means about the bond rating and all of that. But yeah, thank you.
Any other councilors have any comments? Seeing none, all right, I guess I'll speak. As the other councilors have said, I'm very concerned with this budget. It's the highest anybody's ever seen. We're in different times right now, coming out of COVID, post-COVID. The high needs of the school system is incredibly high, 56.3%. That's the most vulnerable population that we have. Them, as well as our senior citizens, I mean, they're going to take a hit when it comes to this budget, if it goes through as it is. We need to provide the best education possible that's affordable for all residents. And as I said, we need to, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we need to worry about our most vulnerable populations. That's other issues that I bring up is the facilities. Facilities might be a good time to start a conversation between the city side and school department side, trying to bring it over to the city side. I know it was previously brought up small amount, but might be a good way to take it off the school's budget, transfer it over to the city. I know you'd be giving up power, but you're tasked with teaching the children, not worrying about the school's day-to-day. You wouldn't have to worry about that. We would have somebody else doing that. WUSTAT, that's another issue. That definitely would be a great idea if we could implement that into the school system. And just so residents at home know that it roughly equates to, for every $45 for every $1,000 that your house is valuated to. That's what it would come out to roughly, what you would be paying more in your taxes. So as it was said, the average tax bill would go up between $600 to $800. And then I also want to urge the residents, if you have comments, concerns, please come out to the meeting Monday night. It is a public hearing, so your voice will be heard. And I'm going to keep an open mind going forward. With that, any other councilors' comments, questions? I'll entertain a motion. Actually, before I entertain a
I
motion,
think Dr. Crowley.
oh, sorry, Dr. Crowley.
Yeah, I just, first of all, I don't think I've stood this long in one place in quite a while. Thank you for your time tonight. I started by saying that. I mean it. I also want to let you know that when Mayor Concanon was sworn in January, one of the first things we started doing was Tuesday mornings going to the schools and walking through the schools and into classrooms and so forth. And one of the things that he kept saying to me, and it's not private, I hope, but is I wish everybody saw what I see. And I think what he means by that, and again, not to put words in his mouth, but the needs of our kids are real. Our teachers are amazing, but they need support. And his support of our budget tonight tells me that the meetings that we've had were effective, because one of the things that I've learned in these meetings is that the mayor is very aware of the impact of this increase on the taxpayers. And so I'd like to believe that our relationship since January has led us to this point, and I appreciate that partnership. As it relates to WUSTAT, so I actually asked a couple of the superintendents, have you ever heard of WUSTAT? And they said no, but little did I know, it's some others.
Well, it's not really called, I'm
CompStat.
sorry.
It's
Through the chair.
CompStat.
It's not really called WUSTAT. Charlie, what's the real name? But we just, we named it,
So
we named it WUSTAT because it's in the Woo.
Right, so welcome to Woburn, right? Like,
Quality
so-
Woburn branding right there.
Yeah, so.
And we made him use orange ink.
So, Mr. Frullo, I believe you if you tell me it's not fiscal. I'm open-minded if there's a way.
It's not fiscal, there's no, it's, I mean,
If there's a way to do things more efficiently and better, I'm interested in learning. And so, I would say that here tonight publicly. A few years ago, we used a system, ClearGov was the name of it, to try to be transparent with budgeting. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but
It stunk.
Is that a technical term, Joe?
Yeah. So I share that because I do believe in transparency with the public. People, and I hear the concern about the marginalized folks in Woburn who may be impacted. And so, again, am appreciative of everyone's time. I do hope that you support the budget where it is. I think it's the right thing for the students in the city, whom my number one responsible is for their education. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And
Before
I'd echo that as well.
Before I entertain a motion, I just want to thank those that are in the audience, Superintendent Crowley, Assistant Superintendent Young and Ryan, Director of Finance Dizio, Chair Lipset, and members of the school committee, Austin, Wetzel, Chisholm, and Cormier, and then also some of our principals from the schools as well. So thank you all for attending.
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I gotta stand up, my legs are
No, but now we can fight that.
Oh, it's probably still going on.